Hey everyone, I'm Brian Gonzales, CEO of Wealth Quotient and host of Relational Capital. Each week, I'm sitting down with leaders who regularly engage with the ultra wealthy across the worlds of luxury, financial services, philanthropy, and more. This week's conversation sets us back into the world of private aviation, where service, confidence, and connection define every interaction. My guest is DJ Hanlon. He's the head of sales at Flexjet, one of the world's leading private aviation companies. Now, for more than 2 decades, DJ has worked with ultra-high net worth clients, building relationships through honesty, humility, and service. We explore what it really takes to earn trust, how to balance goals without becoming transactional, and how to handle things when they don't go perfectly, and why emotional intelligence is one of the most valuable skill sets in business. So with that, let's dive into this conversation with DJ. All right, we got DJ Hanlon in the house today. DJ, I don't think anybody can tell with that big sign behind you where you're from or what company you represent, but glad to have you today.
Thank you, Brian, for having me. I appreciate it. This is fun.
Tell us a little about Flexjet. Tell us a little about yourself, what your role is, how you got in this line of work.
I run the sales at Flexjet here in the US. Flexjet is a fractional jet ownership company. The beauty of Flexjet is not only do we focus on fractional jet ownership, but we work well with our sister companies that are involved in charter, jet card membership, whole aircraft purchases, as well as whole aircraft management, and our team in Europe, as well as our helicopter company that supports our fractional owners.
How long have you been in aviation? How did you get into this?
I was working for an athletes nonprofit foundation 24-ish years ago, and a previous employer was a sponsor, and they were looking to grow their sales team with some younger talent. I kind of hesitated for a while, fell into it. It's been 24 years and it's been amazing. I've been with Flexjet here just over 10 years.
You've got a lot of experience doing this for 20 some odd years. So let's start talking about how you have built relationships and trust with these very, very wealthy people. I'm just curious, what have you found, actually works, and how do you build trust with ultra wealthy people?
I think it comes from knowing your product more than anything. It comes from also working for a company and selling a product that you truly believe in. When you start selling something because you're trying to hit goals, you don't come across as honest and genuine, and people can feel it. I think when they realize that you are truly out there to be their consultative sales, I think they feel it, and they feel your passion behind what you do. I didn't grow up as a pilot, but I fell in love with aviation. I did grow up in the hotel business, which is where my dad was. So being in the hospitality side of the business helped continue to push that into aviation. And at the end of the day, we're a transportation company that happens to use planes. And we have some amazing competitors in our space, but what makes us different is how we do it. And how we do it is really how you build the relationships and the trust. It starts with obviously the initial deal, but you also are the first person there when something doesn't go right. And when something does a hiccup, how do you solve it? And that to me is how you build the most trust. Once you have a client in the house, is how you deal with things when they don't go perfect. And in our industry of aviation, perfect is a very difficult thing. Flexjet, for example, has 300 and some aircraft. And our owners can book a flight up until 10 hours before. So when you look at the operational complications that go with a fleet of 300 plus just planes, and we don't really know where they're going until later this evening for tomorrow. And the owners have the ability to change that up at any point. So having a product that supports really makes being out in the sales side of it a little bit easier, to be able to focus on the relationships and know that you're supported by a great company.
Yeah, so a couple things that I take away from that, but the first I'd like to go back to, how do you balance being relational and building that sort of trust and relationship with a customer with the goals that you have to meet? I think that's probably one of the more challenging things that all sales professionals or fundraisers deal with.
Well, I think you nailed it. The gentleman who hired me, who was my mentor, always used to say, you have to act like you want the business. You don't need the business. I think people feel that pretty quickly when you don't feel like you're being genuine. I think when you start to look at your goals and start to change the way you sell to focus or to accomplish one or two of your goals, you end up selling in a different fashion. I also believe in our world of private aviation, it's a long sales cycle, and our company knows that. The industry's been built on it from the fractional side. So taking the time and realize it is about the marathon, it's not about the sprint for our business, allows you to be a little bit more focused on building the relationship with the clients versus being purely focused on the goals.
Yeah. But transactions are what we have to do at the end of the day, right? We've got to make transactions even if we don't want to be transactional. When you think about tactically just the headspace, is it just as simple as just fake it till you make it to some extent?
I think it's confidence in being able to get through it. I think you have to know when to ask for the check or to go in for the close, and having that ability to be transactional and know when to attack is the key to anything. I think also you have to have the confidence that you're going to be successful, and that whether that's ego or arrogance or anything in between or a combination of, allows you to go into I'll give you an example. In my earlier days, I went into a board meeting, and the gentleman was the CEO and chairman of a multinational company. And I walked into, I think I was 28 years old. I walk into this boardroom, and the boardroom is his conference room off his office is filled with him and pictures of literally every world leader I've seen on the news. I had no chance of succeeding in this negotiation, and the only thing I could do was just be me. And he was either gonna like me or he wasn't gonna like me. But if I tried to change who I was, that guy had been through enough negotiations. I think I came across of being confident to get me at least an equivalent space with him to be able to say, "This is where I believe is right, and I have enough knowledge to be able to tell you I think this is correct." I think a lot of people get in that scenario, and it's intimidating, and they cower a little bit. I think going into the right frame of mind to be able to say, instead of Mr. Gonzalez, Brian, let me tell you what we're going to do. And here's why I think it's right. And we can try little ways to dip your toe in and to let us earn your trust and come with us in a larger scale.
Some people might not view this, might be counterintuitive. Be willing to say, I can walk away from this and hold my head up, not kind of, to your point, drivel and cower just in order to, because I'm holding so hard to, I've got to get this, I've got to get this, right?
I think if you're got the for lack of a better description, the chutzpah to walk out of that room and say, this was a great meeting. Thank you very much for your time. I'm not sure we're the right fit for you. That's a tough place to be when you realize that meeting is your livelihood. And I think if you have the confidence to go in there, I think they immediately look at you a little bit differently. And I think by underselling people and clients, I think a lot of clients will sell themselves into a product. But I think where a lot of people make a mistake, and fundraisers the same, is you're not going for that $10 million donation. Get them comfortable with you. Start with a lower donation. Get them comfortable with what you do with that money. And for our product, make sure that we're going to be there. When you pick up that phone and you want to have plane to go from A to B, we're there to pick you up, and it's a smooth and easy process. And when it doesn't go right, we handle ourselves right. And that customer will get more and more comfortable with you to be able to grow their relationship with you, but also know that you as the salesperson in our industry, we essentially become the account manager once that deal's done. So the way
I love that phrase. And I'm going to pinpoint that. If it doesn't go right, we handle ourselves right. So much of, I think, that building trust is acknowledgement when things don't go right, acknowledging it, but we fix it. And that people don't expect things to go perfect all the time. It's how you handle it when they don't.
in our space in aviation, it's planes are mechanical. There's nothing anyone can do. But knowing and going into this to make sure that our customers know the right expectations, that there are things that don't go perfect, and we'll do whatever we can to do.
The other thing that I love, being willing to walk out, having the chutzpah, right? And not that we want to do that with any sort of ego or bravado or whatnot, but just, hey, this is the best I can do, and this is what I think is right. If they don't move forward, they know that they can trust you at least. They know that you're not going to tell them something that isn't true. So if they go somewhere else and that doesn't work out, they're coming back to you, right? It doesn't end it always, but they're coming back to you.
There was a gentleman that worked on my team named Ken Newman, who's since retired. And he always used to say, you got to win with class and you have to lose with class. Because if you don't, they're not coming back to you. To your point, They find another product, they think it's the right solution. And in our world, it's because someone goes with a lower cost provider, and they realize that when things don't go well, they've gotten what they paid for. But I think if you lose the right way and you're not, burning the house down on your way out the door, um, it'll allow those customers or those prospects to come back when things might see that in our world, Flexjet's a fit for them again. Um, or better yet, they may not come back, but when their friends, their family members, and their colleagues are interested, they say, I didn't go with them because I felt this product was different. I'm not having a greatest experience, but DJ was always good to me. I would call him first.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this about me, but I used to own a wealth management firm and many years ago, and most of my clients were NFL and NBA players and professional athletes. And man, there were so many times when we lost the business, right? We didn't get it when we were pitching an athlete because we said, "Hey, this is the way we're gonna handle your money, right? We're not taking huge swings at the bat, right? We're being conservative." Oh, well, my friends are in this, or my friends are with this, or this person promised this. They went to that person, lost money, and then a year later, they're like, actually, can we work with you? So it's just, I think I've seen it so much when you stick by your convictions, right? Again, with
100%.
humility, with you know, relational capital and EQ, right? Whether you win it then or later, right? Long term, it's hard to be long term focused. So many of us are focused on the short term, but long term, it always comes back.
Short term is the hardest part. I think there is way too many people that are focused in it. In our industry, specifically in aviation, there's certain chunks of our business that are very transactional and very short term based. Um, but the reality is even for the wealth that's generated that does decide to fly private, and for now, we're seeing a lot of wealth or transfer of wealth from generation to generation, taking care of families and building them so they know that, the guy that mom and dad dealt with, or there's a change in leadership in a corporate structure, and to know that this was an entity that always took care of them. It's really important. So the relationship is in our world, and I think for anything, it's there. And the other piece of it is prospects, owners, clients, they switch companies, they get remarried, they do lots of things that occur that essentially can continue to let your network grow that builds your business because once again, they can trust you.
That's good. Well, okay, so
Time
relationships,
is the ultimate true serum, in my opinion. So if
yeah,
you outlast time, you will continue to thrive.
yeah. Okay, so when you think about these relationships that you've built, has there been anything that has surprised you in terms of how a relationship developed or how it initiated? Are there any things that as you've engaged with individuals that have been surprising in terms of how they developed or grew?
Well, there's been some long ones. I think there's one in particular that I can put my finger on is when I left one company after 10 years, I kind of had this vision of these were the group of people that were going to follow me. I felt confident about it. And here's this group of people I didn't really have a great relationship with. So I'm pretty sure they're not going to go anywhere. Boy, was I confused. And I had a lot of the people that I felt confident about, they stuck to it. And the reality was I sold them a product that was right for them and they were the right place to be. But the people that I didn't think I had much relationship ones is where I got my first phone calls back that said, hey, you were good to me. I'm up for renewal. What do you think I should do? And I was in a spot that I had no gain, no losses. And I just spoke honestly with what I felt was important. But to me, that was probably the biggest shock was in my head, I had envisioned this group of clients. They've been my cheerleaders for a long time. They're going to follow me. And it turned out I kept great relationships with them, but they didn't follow me right away. And most of them at this point, 15, 16 just years later, have made their way over. Um, but it was the ones that I dealt with the most that I seemed to have the longest sales cycles with that I realized I sold them a product that they were most comfortable with. And it was good for that company. But I was more shocked with maybe the ones I didn't do a great job with, at least in my opinion. Those are the ones that thought I did okay enough, but the products were changing and they weren't in love with where they were at.
Yeah.
And those were the
Does
first
that
few.
kind of go back to what we were talking about, just about there were problems, and so because of the problems, but it was because of how you handled the problems? Is that kind of where you're driving?
It must have been. I mean, I can't put my finger on it, but the person that took over for me clearly didn't do whatever worked for them. And they came back to what they knew and they said, you were good to us and we trust you. So what do you think?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we talked about a little bit. So talking about not working, things not working for them. As you have salespeople that have reported to you, as you kind of interact with the larger industry, um, not that we want to throw, rocks at glass houses. I'm just curious. Are there any things that we talked about transactional and short-term focus, but I'm just curious, are there stories or things that you think, man, these things just consistently don't work, or things that people or organizations do thinking maybe that this is how we approach this market, but quite frankly, it doesn't work.
it's interesting. So, not throwing stones at glass houses. In previous places, what you've seen, to me, what continues to win is culture and customers feeling that they are a part of something and they are getting, for lack of a better description, their money's worth. And when they don't feel like they're a little fish in this massive pond. They want to feel like they're significant enough. So when they call and they say, "Hey, it's Brian Gonzales," someone doesn't say, "Can you spell your last name?" They want to feel it. And I think the mistake that so many of our competitors have gone to now is they're starting to lose that intimacy that exists with their clients. And I think a lot of that is causing lack of relationships to go. I also believe that they're starting to fill the sales space with lower tenured sales reps, which this is, getting in that door. And I know we've talked about it before. It's the hardest part, and it's the relationships a lot of the times that you've built that help you get to a door. I think when you're starting to fill with a bunch of people that don't have that passion and relationship driven, it allows the product to become very transactional versus that kind of sticky relationship where you felt that you've been taken care of and you felt the respect. And I'll tell you a story that I'll try not to tear up because it's a true story. But
Okay with that. This is a safe space, DJ.
there was a customer of mine long time ago at a previous company whose daughter had taken her own life, and the wife was out of town, and the father had found her. And the first phone call he made was to the owner services team at the company and basically said, "I'm doing this. I need to get my wife back." Things go on. A bunch of years later, uh, they are doing a dedication to essentially the USO version of the Israeli defenses force, and they're flying from through Atlanta into Tel Aviv, and they ultimately had a mechanical on their commercial jet that they were connecting with in Atlanta. Just so happened one of our crew members at the time had landed there. They found a recovery plane last minute. The pilot, which we would consider the SIC, so the kind of second in charge, uh, he had received a phone call from his family that a similar scenario had happened to his own daughter. But he knew why this was so important for these people to get to Israel. And lo and behold, he put his own emotions behind. He flew them to Atlanta. Somehow, some way, through a bunch of different random connections, we've got the people on their plane and they made it on time. But it's that passion that drives to go the extra mile that will always build that relationship and the trust with those customers. And this, in the time of need, they were well taken care of. About a year later, they decided to come to the headquarters, and there were people that were no longer with the company on the owner services end that came in to greet them because they'd never met. And
Wow.
there were tears galore and hugs, and the uh, relationship that had existed not from a sales standpoint, but from a group that supported them on a daily basis and the owners was never to be replaced. And this is almost 20 years later. They're as loyal as they can to that company, and they deserve to be. They've
Yeah.
took care of them in their time of need, but having that ability for that second in command pilot to kind of put his own emotions aside and
Yeah.
say, this is what I'm meant to do. I took a job as a pilot in a private aviation company to provide services to ultra high net worth individuals. This is what this is about. And have a company that supports that pilot after the fact, knowing what he needed to do. is really important. And that's where I think that culture piece uh, is really something that's special that exists in our industry in particular and taking care of people. I mean, there's plenty of stories about the hotel
Well,
business that
there,
they take care of
yeah,
customers.
there are things that we do, right? Like I go back to what ultimately causes these relationships to last. And in some ways, right, it's not like these uh, friendships with these folks develop at times. Of course they do, right? That's not necessarily the goal. But there comes a point when we treat people the right way. And if we have a non transactional focus, and quite frankly, I think I'll use a little bit stronger language, a calling to serve, that this goes from a business relationship to much more of a personal relationship with a business aspect to it, right? And so I think that's ultimately. I'm just curious, how often with your relationships do you find you get past that? Okay, this is a business relationship, and we've actually connected to some degree on a personal level, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think even though I think you can't lose touch with why you're there, right? You
Yeah.
are there to your point to serve them, and even though the relationship becomes personal, I think you can't confuse why you exist and what you're doing. And I think the reality is you have to be there to remember that a great colleague of mine, Greg, who we've worked together for almost all of my career, he has a great phrase, which is very clear that if you don't love making obscenely wealthy people happy, you're in the wrong business. And that comes from not just the sales standpoint and the pilots, but it's all the ancillary divisions and departments within a group, our catering group, the group who, does the aircraft detailing. You really have to love what you do. And our customers feel it. They pay a lot of money to get what they want. And just like any other industry, people want to get their value for what it is. But when you're flying at 50,000 feet, 45,000 feet, you want to make sure that you're in the right hands. And I think that is the key to it.
If you're going to be really good at doing your job in this ultra high net worth space, I think you've got to enjoy people and really enjoy getting to know them, right? Yeah.
100%. You gotta click with them, and by the way, you gotta be a chameleon. Sometimes you're hardcore right, sometimes you're, far left, and you have different opinions, and you've gotta be able to connect with people that have different opposing opinions to you, um, which I actually find to be one of the more challenging things sometimes, and I feel like that challenge is really taking a frustrated customer or someone that says they know better, and to get them over, to win them over to your case is to me, it's the gift.
Well, and it's a fun challenge. I like gamifying it to some extent. And to your point, there are people that are going to have very different processes to you on a lot of different things. One of the things that I like to coach people towards is just how you actually build chemistry and trust with these folks. But one of the things is trying to find things that you have in common. Well, there have been newer sales people that we've worked with or younger fundraisers, and we'll use case studies. And maybe we'll do a case study of a well-known billionaire. And you know what they'll say? I don't have anything in common with this billionaire. And I'm like, you do, there should be nobody on this planet that you can't find something you have in common with them. And if you can't, then you're not trying hard enough.
But
So,
the people at the end of the day, ultra high net worth individuals are human beings. They may have some more people around them every day. They may be into some products that are seem outlandish to other people or out of reach for others. But the reality is they just want to deal with another person that will speak honestly with them, that can speak intelligently to their products and their conversation. I mean, a bulk of the meetings I go to, I don't think we even talk about Flexjet. We talk about the world, the aviation industry as a whole. They want to talk and deal with someone that they trust. And they want to talk to someone that's not going to just call them every time they want to close a deal, whether it's a renewal or it's an extension or an add-on. They want to talk to you just to feel like they're a part of it.
and to be a real human being, I mean, look, especially in aviation, I hear this a lot where I'm just the jet person. I'm just the jet guy, the jet girl. Why do these people want to have a relationship with me? And this could be true of any industry. I raise money for this organization. And so what they oftentimes think is, why would they want to have a relationship with me? Well, if all you ever talk about is planes, I wouldn't want to have a relationship with you either. So, can you have a conversation and be a human being and talk to them about other things as the opportunities come up? Or is it just all I know how to talk about is Flexjet, right?
Well, I think it's a great point, and I think it's on the sales reps or fundraisers requirement to become more diverse and to become more knowledgeable of sports. I mean, I was in London last week, and I was talking to a customer, and he's talked about cricket. I don't understand a word, anything about cricket, and I tried to learn it. It's very complicated. But I also was there and didn't act like I knew anything. I owned that I knew nothing about it, but I'd love to know more, and it was a little confusing. And we
Yeah.
spent an hour talking about it. He was giving me Cricket 101,
Yeah.
and
I love it.
it was fantastic. I think that's one thing to highlight is more than anything, don't ever lie. Don't ever make up an answer. And if you don't know the answer, just say, I don't know. And
Yeah.
I feel like that is a skill that is clearly not normal because people get nervous and they just kind of spew an answer out that's wrong. Um, but I think people like humility.
Yeah. I tell a story of a fundraiser that I knew that was meeting with an extremely wealthy individual and knew that that person had a really big passion for cars and walk was meeting with the was meeting with the prospect at their home and he said, look, if I wasn't in the right headspace as I walked up the driveway and there was this like 5-car garage with a Lamborghini and a poor, just supercars, my natural inclination would have been to be like, what a self-indulgent blankety blank. But, what did he do? The gentleman opened the door, and the first words out of his mouth almost were, "Those are some beautiful cars. Tell me about those." To which he was surprised because you go back, the prospect goes, "Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg, and there was a warehouse out back with dozens and dozens." And he spent the next hour and a half just walking the person through it and sharing stories of the cars. Well, you know, take interest, be genuine. To your point, I don't need to act like I'm the car guy, but I can show interest, right? I can show interest.
Yeah, I think the other part to it, Brian, is these ultra high net worth individuals. They've got some great backgrounds. They've been involved or created the products and items that have changed the way most of us have done business and live life. And I think hearing their story of their successes is amazing. And I think people love to talk about themselves and highlight their successes. But I also think what's most interesting is listening to their failures and what they've gone through, um, and what they've overcome. Only makes me a stronger person in being able to go through it as well.
Yeah, it's good. Okay. I'm looking at the time. I got a couple more questions, hard hitting, deep, impactful questions. Access to these folks is so challenging, right? And everybody's looking for tips and tricks about how do we get in front of these people. I'm curious, what what are the things you're doing to get in front of folks? I actually wrote down this question. What's the boldest door opening move you've tried that worked?
I'm going to go a different direction. I believe for people selling to ultra high net worth individuals, it's not about a move or a dance. I think this is a relationship that you're building, similar to you want to go on a date. I don't know if your eyes are sparkling like whatever is. I've been married 18 years, so my lines are off. But I think the reality is figuring out, and this is part of the game, is how do I attract or how do I attack Brian the best way? And how do I figure out his network? And who do I know that can make the introduction that says, by the way, Brian, DJ is a great guy. You need to talk to him about your private aviation. I think that approach is much different. I think the percentage of success is much higher. I think it's really about how you approach people and how they do. I think people get turned off if you get too aggressive, and they might play the game and they might spin your wheels a little bit because they'll say, okay, I get it. Um, but at the end of the day, I don't think they're ever going to trust you too much. But if you have something that works for you, l'chaim, fire away. Good for you. But I think
Yeah.
everyone's got to find out what's best for them. And I think when you try and do something that doesn't fit you perfectly, you come across as disingenuous, and I don't think people want to deal with it. So I think really figuring out your best angle to approach someone in the right fashion. And by the way, some clients require a more aggressive move and others are like a little on the older side. They want to make it, baby steps. Maybe it's someone at a golf club or a country club or a business, a board of directors. They teach at a local school, huge football fans, whatever it may be, is finding out the right angle to just have a decent conversation that gets you enough energy that you say, this person decides, okay, I'll give him a step, I'll give him a swing at the bat. And I don't know if it's gimmicky. I think it's a bold move of, I'm going to ask someone to make a personal introduction is a bold move. And I think sometimes it's 2 or 3 degrees of separation that you got to make yourself there. But I think putting together, and you know it better than anybody, putting together a roadmap to get there and spending the energy and time to get there. If you rush it too quick, very few people that met and dated and got married tend to have a long lasting marriage. But the ones that get to know each other well and get to realize that this is the right partnership, I think tends to work. And by the way, marriage isn't for everyone. So there's, you got to make sure that you're approaching it the right way and going after
DJ,
it. I
hot
think
takes today.
knowing
Yeah.
your prospect is the biggest key.
I have almost a counterintuitive an opinion that I think is right, that many find counterintuitive, that approaching an ultra wealthy person directly typically doesn't work, right? Because of how bombarded these folks are, and maybe you see somebody at a gala or you're at an event, you go up and shake their hand and try to have a conversation and get their business card, and you might have a 5-minute conversation, but I tend to think that they now just view you as somebody else that wants something from you. And I'm not saying that you might not have the most charming personality and maybe you've actually genuinely hit it off, but I think that's 1 out of 10 times that actually happens. And to your point, rushing, if you can wait and come through an introduction, you're going to be positioned much more effectively.
I agree with you. And I actually would take yours a little bit further. I'm not sure they'll remember your 30-second introduction at a gala.
Yeah.
Like, they're talking to many other friends and colleagues that are there. I think it doesn't tend to work very well unless you faint and hit your head and they give you CPR or whatever it may be. Maybe there's a memory there, but I do believe taking the time to make the introduction is as important it is in the sales process.
You're going to have a lot of people now fake fainting in front of their prospects because of that. So if that works, anybody, let us know. I got one last question. Okay. You think about your extensive history, piece of advice that someone's given you, an experience or a memory that has stayed with you, that has cemented your kind of philosophy and approach on building relationships and trust.
I've been lucky enough in my time that each role I've taken has become an introduction from something else. But it's really the trust that you built with customers and built that network. I mean, I think the biggest piece is don't be confused with who you are and what you do. At the end of the day, you're a salesperson or you're a fundraiser. Don't get lost. Don't get confused, and just stick with it and ultimately find customers that you click with. And those customers were billed. If you are going after a clientele that is not you, if I was selling social media ads right now, probably to influencers, it probably wouldn't go very well. It's not my forte. But I think it's really finding a product that you love, finding a company that does right for you, I think is a loyalty and a match that's more than anything. And I find that your customer relationships are like marriages or relationships of any sort. This is the family you choose, not the one that you're born into. And I think finding clients that are the right clients are key. If you feel like this is going the wrong direction and this isn't going to be a good long term, find someone else in your colleague that can help you make the move, and or just say, I don't think we're meant for one another, but I think this company is a better fit for you.
And I love all that. How I'm going to summarize all of that? I think it's humility and being a lifelong learner, right? And the hustle and the work ethic.
Used way fewer words, and I appreciate your answer.
DJ Hanlon, I appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Relational Capital is produced by Wealth Quotient, where our mission is to help sales and fundraising professionals access and engage the ultra-affluent market more effectively and efficiently. To learn more or schedule a call, visit mywealthq.com. I'm Brian Gonzales. Thanks for listening.